A boy of 20 stands over his murdered father. In 336 BC, Philip II of Macedon falls to an assassin's blade at his daughter's wedding. No warning, no mercy. The young prince inherits 40,000 soldiers, a throne warm with blood, and a mind that Aristotle has spent years sharpening. Olympios fills his ears with whispers of divine ancestry. 13 years of life remain. He spends them conquering the known world. Within 2 years, Greek rebellions collapse. The prince levels Thebes as a brutal warning to every state considering defiance. Then east. In 334 BC, 47,000 soldiers cross the Hellespont into Persian territory. At the Granicus River, a Persian blade catches his helmet and splits the bronze. A crack echoes across the water. Clytus the Black kills the attacker one heartbeat before the next blow lands. The conquest begins with the king one sword stroke from death. What begins as a border raid becomes the greatest military campaign the ancient world has ever seen. 3 continents, 4 decisive battles, over 30,000 kilometers of marching through desert, mountain, and river that no Greek has crossed before. The young Macedonian faces the largest empire on earth with no supply lines and no plan for retreat. Victory means reshaping civilization. Defeat means Macedonia vanishes from the map. By the time this story ends, a prince who reads Homer before bed conquers more land than any human in recorded history. Along the way, he transforms beyond recognition. The philosopher's student becomes a man who demands worship as a living god. The beloved commander becomes a stranger his own veterans can no longer follow. This is a story of conquest, glory, and the terrible price of unlimited power. From a distance, a charging Macedonian phalanx looks like a forest of iron points sweeping across open ground. Each soldier carries a sarissa pike over 5 meters long. Companion cavalry strikes the flanks with the concentrated force of a battering ram. Generals like Parmenion and Ptolemy command divisions hardened by decades of war. Their king fights in the front rank of every engagement, shoulder to shoulder with his men in the dust and blood. In 333 BC, the two kings meet for the first time at Issus. Darius positions a massive force along the Pinaris River. The Macedonian reads the terrain in minutes and pins the Persian center with his phalanx. Companion cavalry swings wide around the left flank. Hooves thunder across hard ground. Dust chokes the air between the armies. Macedonians crash through the royal guard in a wave of bronze and iron. Darius watches his line collapse. The great king turns his chariot and runs. Darius escapes but leaves behind something priceless. His mother, his wife, and his daughters now sit in enemy hands. Any other conqueror ransoms or enslaves a captured royal family without hesitation. Instead, the victor bows to the queen mother Sisyagambis and promises her safety. She mistakes Hephaestion for the king because he stands taller. Even Hephaestion is the king, he tells her with a laugh. In a war defined by cruelty, this small act of grace shocks both armies. South along the coast, the island fortress of Tyre refuses to submit. Walls rise straight from the sea, where no army has ever breached them.
Engineers receive orders to build a causeway across 800 meters of open water. 7 months of hauling stone under arrows and burning pitch follow. The smell of tar and blood hangs over the site for weeks. When the causeway reaches the walls, Macedonians pour through every gap. Every surviving defender hangs crucified along the beach. After Tyre, Egypt opens its gates without a fight. On the coast, a new city rises bearing the conqueror's name. Then he vanishes into the Libyan desert toward the Oracle of Siwa. Something happens there that no source can fully explain. Heavy doors close behind him. When he emerges into blinding sunlight, the priests bow lower than they bow for any pharaoh. Something in his face has changed. He no longer asks for loyalty. He demands worship. Now the march turns toward the heart of Persia. Darius gathers everything he has for one final stand at the plain of Gaugamela. Ancient sources claim over 200,000 soldiers wait on that field. The ground has been leveled smooth to give Persian war chariots maximum speed. Scythed wheels designed to slice infantry at the knees guard the front. War elephants stamp and bellow behind them. Against all this, 47,000 Macedonians. On the night before battle, Parmenion urges a surprise attack under cover of darkness. The king refuses because he wants Darius to see exactly what defeats him. That night, while 200,000 enemies camp across the plain, the young conqueror sleeps. His generals cannot believe it and argue among themselves until dawn. At first light on October 1, 331 BC, the army forms an angled line. Cavalry mounts. Dust from the largest army on earth drifts through morning air. Darius launches the scythed chariots first. Macedonian infantry opens gaps and lets them roll harmlessly through the ranks. Then comes the moment that decides an empire. A gap tears open in the Persian left as units shift to counter the flanking movement. Companion cavalry drives into the opening at full speed. Bronze crashes against bone. Horses scream. The wedge smashes through toward the golden chariot of Darius. For one breathless moment, the two kings lock eyes. Cavalry smashes through the royal guard. Persian officers fall around the golden chariot. For the second time in this war, Darius chooses flight over death and rides east until the dust swallows him whole. His army watches their king vanish. Panic spreads through the ranks like fire through dry grass. Weapons hit the earth. Men who conquer nations now run screaming for their lives. In one afternoon at Gaugamela, the greatest empire the world has known shatters like glass. Inside Persepolis, wealth beyond counting. The treasury holds 120,000 talents of gold and silver. It takes 2,000 mules and 5,000 camels to carry the riches out. The army drowns in luxury for months. Then one night, fire. Marble cracks in searing heat as the palace of Xerxes burns. Inscriptions that survived 2 centuries melt away in hours. Whether this blaze begins by order or drunken impulse, no source agrees. By morning, the heart of Persia is ash. Darius flees east through the dying remnants of his empire, while his own generals turn against him. In 330 BC, Bessus, the satrap of Bactria, seizes the king.
The conspirators stab him and leave him bleeding by the roadside. A Macedonian scout reaches the body first, still breathing. The conqueror arrives too late, but kneels beside his rival and covers the dying king with his own purple cloak. The empire ends on a dirt road, with the victor weeping over the vanquished. Central Asia swallows the army next. Winter crossings over the Hindu Kush test every man alive. For 3 years, guerrilla fighters in the mountains of Bactria and Sogdiana bleed Macedonian columns at every turn. Then comes a night that haunts the king forever. At a banquet, Cletus the Black challenges him over his new Persian customs. This is the same man who saves his life at the Granicus. A spear leaves the king's hand. Cletus falls.
The room goes silent as screaming begins. In 326 BC, the army reaches the edge of the known world. King Porus waits at the Hydaspes River with 200 war elephants no Greek has ever faced in battle. The ground trembles beneath their weight. During a midnight storm, rafts cross the swollen river under cover of rain and lightning. Archers target the elephants from the flanks. Wounded animals trumpet in agony and stampede backward through their own infantry. Porus fights from his largest elephant until blood loss drops him. After Hydaspes, orders come to march deeper into India. The soldiers refuse. They stand in monsoon rain and weep. 8 years, 17,000 kilometers, 3 continents of blood and dust behind them. Letters home that never arrive. Children growing up without knowing their fathers' faces. For the first time, the world refuses to obey one man's will. He sits in his tent for 3 days, speaking to no one. Then the order comes. Turn west. Go home. The return journey proves deadlier than any battle. Sand so fine it enters armor joints, covers everything in the Gedrosian desert. Heat blisters skin through leather. Water vanishes by the 3rd day. Men collapse where they stand, while the column walks over their bodies without stopping. Sources claim 1/4 of those who enter never emerge. A soldier offers the king a helmet of water. He holds it high so every man can see, then pours it into the sand. Babylon receives a different man from the prince who crosses the Hellespont 8 years earlier. The boy who reads Homer by lamplight now orders executions without trial. All who approach the throne must press their faces to the floor. At banquets, drinking continues until standing becomes impossible. Veterans from 8 years of war see a stranger draped in Persian silk and wearing a golden diadem. Where is the prince who laughs with Sisygambes? Something behind those eyes is gone forever. In 324 BC, Hephaestion dies of fever in Ecbatana. With him goes the closest companion since boyhood, the one who shares his tent, his secrets, and the weight of empire. Gone. Food goes untouched for days. The attending doctor faces execution. Every horse in the army has its mane cut short in mourning. Divine honors for Hephaestion follow across the empire. Historians see this as the final fracture, the moment something inside breaks beyond repair.
On June 10th, 323 BC, the conqueror dies in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon at the age of 32. Fever consumes him over 10 agonizing days. His generals gather around the bed. According to ancient accounts, his final words are a whisper, "To the strongest." Within hours, the men who conquer the world together draw swords against each other. What takes 13 years to build begins to shatter before the body is cold. His empire fractures, but what it leaves behind reshapes civilization across the ancient world. Greek becomes the common language from Egypt to the borders of India. On the coast of Egypt, the city bearing his name rises as the intellectual capital of an entire age. Over 70 cities dot the map from Turkey to Afghanistan. Eastern and Western cultures fuse in ways nobody foresees. Aristotle's student carries philosophy east and brings astronomy west. Can any single life claim a wider reach? 32 years of life, not a single battle lost. 3 continents reshape themselves around one man. Monuments crumble after him. Dynasties rise and collapse in his wake. Yet 23 centuries later, his name still carries weight in every language spoken on earth. History produces conquerors by the dozen. Only one reshapes the entire known world before his heart stops
at 32. A boy, a king, a force that history never repeats.